Karisa Maxwell here with founder, CEO, president, promoter, presenter, Tony Khan of AEW, All Elite Wrestling. Tony, how does it feel to be here in Los Angeles for the Super Bowl this week?
It's great to be here for the visiting LA for the Super Bowl on behalf of the NFL, and also with AEW. We've got a big week of shows. It's great to be here promoting. It's because of the NFL and the power of the Super Bowl. It's the biggest media week in the world, so we're here surrounded by some of the world's biggest names in sports, and AEW has now become one of those names. Wednesday Night Dynamite has become one of the top shows, and now we've debuted a Friday night show. We have Friday Night Rampage tonight and every Friday night on TNT. Wednesday Night Dynamite on TBS this week was actually the #1 show on cable all of Wednesday, beating out such top shows as the NBA on ESPN. We beat South Park on Comedy Central, and we beat the Olympics on USA. So it was a big week for AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite, the #1 show on cable. And we have great fans, and it's because of the great wrestling fans that it's possible. And there's a lot of great wrestling fans and great wrestling people at the Sporting News, and you guys have a lot of great wrestling minds.
Well, thank you. And as excited as fans are for all of the excitement happening around AEW, you're out in LA, but when are we going to start seeing some AEW shows out in LA?
Well, it's a great question, Karisa. I would love to bring AEW out to the West Coast, and I'm excited to say that we are coming back to the West Coast. So I think it could be very soon. This summer, AEW is slated to return to Las Vegas, where it all began for us. The first AEW show was Double or Nothing in Las Vegas. We'll be back Memorial Day weekend in Las Vegas again, so I think fans can look forward to that. Our next pay-per-view, of course, is Revolution in Orlando, and then we've got Double or Nothing's the pay-per-view after that. It's Memorial Day weekend, so it's every quarter we have a huge event, but after Double or Nothing, I think we can look forward to maybe AEW out here, who knows.
And earlier this week, you had a big announcement. You signed Keith Lee, Jay White. What can we expect from Jay White? Is he going to be on the roster for a long time?
Well, Jay White came through the Forbidden Door via our great relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling. You're clearly a big wrestling fan, Karisa, so you know that New Japan and AEW have put on some great matches together with great wrestlers from AEW going there. Jon Moxley, of course, was the U.S. champion of New Japan, the IWGP U.S. champion, and actually he lost the title to Lance Archer in a Texas death match. We just saw Lance Archer, then his next Texas death match was with Hangman Page for the world title. What a great match this week on Dynamite in the main event. Hangman Page retaining the AEW world title, and we've seen great wrestlers from New Japan come into AEW, Minoru Suzuki, of course Tomohiro Ishii, and Jay White. So Kenta, lots of great wrestlers from New Japan, and I think we can look forward to more both ways through the Forbidden Door.
And how hard has it been for AEW to foster an environment where you could bring in your own talent and grow them like Jungle Boy, but then also bring in veterans like Keith Lee who have this prominence already? How is that challenge being embraced by AEW?
I think it's one of the great things about AEW, and it's one of the great things about Wednesday Night Dynamite and Friday Night Rampage, is that you get to see the top veterans and you get to see the young stars. And like Jungle Boy's a great example. He's won half of the World Tag Team Champions, and he's wrestled a lot of the top veteran teams and a lot of the top stars of today. He's mentored by Christian Cage, who's a great wrestler. He really spans multiple generations, and he's mentored Jungle Boy, and he's been great. But with AEW, you get to see like the top young stars wrestling the top veterans, and you never know what's going to happen. CM Punk came into AEW, wrestled Darby Allin right off the bat, and then wrestled a lot of the young stars like Daniel Garcia, but also a lot of the great veterans, Eddie Kingston and Matt Sydal and Bobby Fish. And he was undefeated until he matched up against MJF, who again is one of those top young wrestlers and a great young wrestler. So it's really exciting having the best matches and the best wrestlers of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And talk about somebody who spans all the generations. Sting is the greatest wrestler of my childhood and one of the greatest wrestlers ever, and we get to see Sting wrestle every, frankly, all the time. Like it's like crazy. Sting's comeback at first, we didn't know he'd wrestle so regularly, but it's, every so often, pretty frequently, Sting gets back in the ring, and it's always something to look forward to when he's out there. It's always a main event.
And one of the narratives that is not only taking over the wrestling world, but every sports league, is this focus on diversity and inclusion and promoting people to be themselves and embrace all different walks of life, honestly. And you bring up New Japan Wrestling. We talked to Fred Ross earlier in the week, and he talked to us about being the first openly gay pro wrestler and how supported he feels by New Japan. What is AEW doing to help support athletes coming up and getting a more diverse sport that I think we all want?
Well, in many ways, you just mentioned that, and Anthony Bowens, of course, was just here promoting on behalf of GLAAD and the NFL and AEW. Anthony Bowens, one half of the Acclaimed. Of course, I think in the LGBTQ community, we have great representation, including Nyla Rose, a former women's world champion, the first transgender world champion in wrestling ever. And great representation, and of course diversifying the roster is very important, and we saw that, I think, on this week's Wednesday Night Dynamite as we added great free agents this week, including Keith Lee and AQA, and I plan to continue to diversify and expand the roster, and I'm very excited about what we're doing. And also Jake Atlas, another great debut who really serves the community, and he's a great person. I was sorry he had that injury on Rampage against Adam Cole, but I'm really excited about him, and we're going to take care of him while he's out, and big fan of Jake Atlas too.
And we've seen a lot of crossover with AEW with athletes from different sports. We had Shaq, NBA, you had some UFC fighters. Which non-wrestling athlete would you like to see join the show?
Well, it's a great question. I would love, I think, I'd have to say, if Fred Taylor, he was one of the greatest running backs ever. I think Fred Taylor belongs in the Hall of Fame. There's only 2 running backs in the history of the NFL who ever carried the ball 2,500 times and maintained an average of 4.6 yards a carry or more. Only 2 ever. Barry Sanders and Fred Taylor. And now we have the first Jaguar ever, just made the Hall of Fame. I was here with him to celebrate last night that Tony Baselli's in the Hall of Fame, finally, which is long overdue also. And now I think hopefully we can also get a second Jaguar in the Hall of Fame. Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith, one of the great receivers of that era, I think would both be great candidates. And so Fred Taylor getting in the ring, I think would be awesome. And Fred Taylor getting in the Hall of Fame would be even better.